Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, we have with us a very special guest, and his name is Jeffrey Azan. Before Jeffrey became the founder of Select and Start on a mission to help Jamaica and the world become a better place, he was and still is many other things. He is a businessman, entrepreneur, martial artist, Toastmaster, and game changer are just a few of the titles held by Mr. Azan. He possesses over 18 years of experience in the retail industry, having been raised in his family's business, Azan's. Upon completion of his Bachelors in Business Management at Boston University, he stepped into a top-tier management role as director for Azan's and served in that position for 6 years. In his own right, he has also been a franchise owner in Organo Gold and Anway, a cafe owner under the brand Café Moments, a consultant under the brand Profit Team, general manager of the brand solution company It's Pixel Perfect, and the organization of the live music show A Moment of Jazz. Jeffrey currently spends the majority of his time working through his passion for the development of others in an effort to see a better Jamaica and a better world. He does this by providing motivational keynote speeches, group skill training, and one-on-one coaching. He founded the self-development brand Select and Start back in 2013 with a vision of it becoming the #1 personal development brand to be birthed out of the Caribbean. The brand has taken to titling its coaches and speakers as game changers, which is a title Jeffrey holds very proudly. His motto is a simple one: change your game, change your life. So without further delay, welcome Jeffrey.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be on the podcast.
Awesome. Okay, so before we actually start into the question and answer section of the podcast, we always like to allow our guests for them to introduce themselves to our audience. Could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Boy, after such a phenomenal introduction, I'm not sure what else there is to say. Following up on it, there little things to plug in there. My years in retail was specifically in the housewares industry. As a Toastmaster, which is one of the other many things I do, I have not just been a Toastmaster in terms of speaking, but I've also been a competitor. And recently, I culminated a win of the Caribbean Championship of Public Speaking in the category of impromptu speaking. As well as competing in martial arts, I recently went to Curacao and represented Jamaica at the 31st Pan American Games hosted by the WKF, which is the first Olympic qualifier in this region. So it was a big honor to represent Jamaica at that qualifier. And all in all the titles you mentioned and all the jobs you mentioned, I can just say at the core, I try to be all that I can be in each of those categories. And so far, putting my all forward, I have reaped many challenges and managed to turn those challenges into either successes or learning opportunities. And I think that's, if anybody wants to know Jeffrey, that is one of the key aspects to know, is that if you're involved with him, he's going to be full force, he's going to be full of passion, he's going to expect you to deliver. And there's not going to be any challenge that isn't going to be for the benefit of himself or the team.
Excellent. So a true all-rounder in every sense of the word, right?
For sure. I grew up in a very interesting household. I was a big Ninja Turtle fan as a kid. And to be honest, that led me to look into the Renaissance. All the Ninja Turtles are named after great Renaissance men. And it led me to look into what the Renaissance was. And when I looked into Leonardo da Vinci, I found that he did it all. He was sculptor, artist, painter, doctor, scientist, inventor, engineer, martial artist, in fact, and covered so many areas. And I said, but, if one man can do so much, what can't I do? Sure. So it's really just discovering each talent that I have and then working to bring those talents to full fruition through whatever means necessary.
Right. Amazing. So, Jeffrey, a lot of our listeners are from many different parts of the world. We have people listening in over 70 countries. And I think a big part of why they listen is because of the wide variety of guests that we have the opportunity to engage in and the backgrounds that they have to bring forth, as well as, you know, the different opportunities and successes that they speak about in their own life. So I would like for you to share with me how you believe customer experience has been for you over the years, with so much experience that you have pretty much under your belt. What is your definition of customer service, customer experience? Do you find it's different in the Caribbean versus, you know, in all of those first world countries that you've been exposed to, especially seeing that you went to university outside of Jamaica? And if there are any shortcomings or limitations that you see us faced with here in Jamaica, what do you think they are and how do you think we can overcome them?
Well, you know, it's so interesting to look at customer experience and really analyze it, because just in the very sense that we're placing a label on it creates the first problem in my understanding. When I worked in retail, to be honest with you, I always told my staff the customer is never right. That was the first key. The customer is never right. They're coming into the store, they don't know what they're looking for, they don't know how to describe it, they don't know the function of it. And it's this guessing game to kind of figure out what it is that they want. And what I tried to push is that base knowledge, knowing that the customer isn't right, what I was trying to do is preempt the frustration with the customer. And so in getting them in that thinking to know that the customer isn't going to be right, it gave them almost an added bonus to serve to a higher level. It's not that anybody's going to come in and say, oh, I want a green curtain for a blue bathroom. You'd have to say, well, what shade of blue it is. What type of curtain do you want? How tall is the window? How far from the ground is the window? And all of these questions would have to come in because the customer isn't right. You cannot just give them a green curtain because that's what they said they wanted. Mm-hmm. And from there, the idea evolved. And I think I heard it best at a customer service workshop I went to, where the speaker there said, the customer is king. And I paused and I reflected on that. And I had to question. I said, please explain it. And I gave him my whole thought process on the customer is never right. And what he said to me is that he agreed with me that the customer is never right. But it doesn't change the fact that the customer still has the power. The customer is still the final boss. They are the king of the domain. If there are no customers, there is no business. Nobody gets paid.
Agreed.
And what he said is that if you think of the customer as king, then what happens is no matter how wrong they are, you still have a duty to serve.
True.
And I stopped and I really reflected on that for a long time. And I thought, wow, what an amazing little concept that if you always think of the customer as king, you'll always be of this higher level of service. But here's the problem with that, is that we draw this huge distinction between two humans. And you ask me what have I experienced internationally. And I did not just go school overseas in the US, but I had fortunate opportunities to be a part of programs and summits and conferences that have carried me around the world. I've been to Australia, I've been to Western Europe, I've been all over the Caribbean, all over North America, and I'm sure there's plenty more to come. One of my most eye-opening experiences in customer service was when in Australia, walking on the pier, somebody was soliciting business for their food stall. And as I was passing, he didn't push a sale. He engaged me as a person. He immediately recognized I was a tourist and began having a conversation with me. And we had a big conversation about Jamaica and what was I doing all the way from Jamaica over there in Australia. And because he engaged me as a human having a conversation, I was quicker to look into what does he do and what's his business. And I think that's the first step. And we as both the customer and the one serving the customer need to remember that we're not dealing with a uniform. We're not dealing with a title. We're dealing with a person. And I hate seeing when I go to a restaurant and somebody deals with the waiter like garbage because they're the waiter. They're supposed to serve. They're a human. They have the same trials, the same tribulations. They went through the same schooling system you went through in many cases. Maybe they've been dealt a hard break. Maybe that they have not made the best of decisions. But at the end of the day, they're still a human. And real customer service starts there in recognizing that the other person is another human. And if I'm going to serve that other human as the server, as a person providing the service, that's step one on an international scale. And very often, especially here in Jamaica and the third world countries that I visited, is that we don't serve humans, we serve uniforms, we serve titles, and we're treated accordingly. There are some doctors I've met who are probably first-class doctors, but they're horrible people.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about it.
Right. But the point is that they expect a certain level of service because I am Dr. So-and-so. Now, I give you all props and credits for being Dr. So-and-so. I'm sure it wasn't easy to become Dr. So-and-so. However, at the end of the day, I am still Jeffrey. I am not server number 2. I am not in the back credits of a movie as, staff member number 3. I am Jeffrey. And the second that we as the customer or we as a server forget that element, the whole interaction and relationship has gone out the window. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's a relationship between two people. True. It just so happens one is providing a service and one is in need of that service.
True. Very true. Very true. It really resonates. What I took most away from all of what you just said was that we're all emotional beings, regardless of where we are from, regardless of our background. And at the end of the day, if we all look on each other as people with the same level of feelings and emotions that the customer would have, that the employee would have, that the employer would have, and employ that level of understanding to really, see where the other person is coming from, treat them with the same level of courtesy and respect that you would treat anyone else, the quality of our relationships would improve, which by default would improve customer experience. True?
Significantly. It is in my business in Select and Star. What we tell people we provide is motivation, inspiration, and personal development. And at the very root of it all, that is what it is. It is, I cannot serve you if I'm not willing to connect with you.
Yes.
And what you'll recognize as humans is we've grown this very disgusted outlook of a salesperson because we feel like a con is coming. Mm-hmm. And yet the greatest salespeople in the world are some of the best humans I've ever come across.
True. So true. Because they're good at it for a reason, right?
Exactly. They take the time to build that relationship. And in building a relationship, I've had a customer who bought nothing when they came to buy. Absolutely nothing. They took 3 hours of my time and I genuinely thought it was wasted. The next time they came to the store, they came with their entire community and they only wanted to deal with me. And that happened because we had a connection. I asked about the family. I asked about the home. I wasn't just providing a product, but I wanted to really understand what he needed. And in understanding what he needed, I could make suggestions. In fact, there was a particular item that we had in the store at the time, but based on on the situation he was in that he explained to me, I told him where he could get it cheaper. And he couldn't believe that I was sending him out of the store. But because of that one comment in trying to help a fellow human, he brought the whole community and he said, whatever the prices are in here, this is where you must shop.
Yes. He felt the connection for sure. It's interesting that you shared that story because I must say I did business with a company recently and the sales representative took the same approach. They said, listen, we don't have that item at the moment, but I know that this particular organization has it. And he took out the phone and he called them and he actually sent me down there to somebody specifically after calling them and telling them to expect me. And I thought it was really awesome because it was not a branch of their business. It was a complete different company like their competition. And he was willing to just ensure that I got served, that even if it meant me going to the competitor. And to me, I really appreciated that. I would go back again because of that experience.
Exactly. And it's so much more outside of just the customer experience. It is, you know, I tell people all the time when I'm teaching personal development and helping people to build their businesses, we're always selling. We're selling ourselves, we're selling our brands, we're selling our time, we're selling our knowledge, we're selling our expertise. So we are consistently, by simply being alive, active, and interacting with other people, we are engaged in customer service.
Yes.
But because I don't have on a store uniform, you don't think of me as a server.
True.
And yet, that's exactly what I'm doing. And if we, as both server and customer, can get past that, I can't preach it enough in the sense that it's a real thorn in my side, if I'm to be honest. I hate it. I genuinely feel my blood pressure go up and steam come from my ears when I see people degrading other people or even hoisting other people up, placing them on the pedestal simply because of uniform or title.
Yes.
Respect is different from praise, and everybody is due respect for the work that they've put in, for the accomplishments they've got. And I'll never tell anybody to not show that respect and courtesy accordingly. However, nobody should put down somebody else or pedestal them just because of title or uniform.
True, very true. So, Jeffrey, in the many workshops that you have to put on or the engagements that you have to deal with in terms of the clients that you have, what do you think are maybe 3 characteristics that you think any human being would need in order to be truly a server? 3 characteristics.
Well, I'll give you better than 3. I'll give you 5. Because here's the thing, we do provide, Select and Start does provide customer service training. And I developed the customer service training program, when I had the cafe. So I ran a cafe with a partner of mine for about 1.5 years. And when we got into it, I was coming from the retail background. I had never done anything other than retail at the time. And he said to me, "You're great with people. You should train the team." Now, I didn't have a clue what I was about to do. I knew how to sell. I knew the intrinsic knowledge, but I never taught sales. And what came to me through that is that the root of sales, as I've been saying all along, is relationships and people. And I recognize that if somebody is going to be a fantastic salesperson, a great customer service person, the key of that is to just be a better person.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a better person, if you have done all that you can do to keep your life in check and put it on a path of improvement, naturally you're going to be more pleasant. Naturally you're going to be wanting to serve more. Naturally you're going to be willing to engage with another person because you have taken care of your own problems, you can now help another.
True.
You can never help another if at the forefront of your mind you're thinking, how is this going to benefit me? And so what we came up with is what we call the Select and Start core. And these are things that anybody can apply and always apply. And if you can work on these things and fall back on them, some people actually have taken it as their ethical and moral compass in life. As somebody has called and told me that, is that by utilizing these things, it's not a one size fit all, but it's a guideline to say, am I improving? Am I getting better? And if they do that, then everything else starts to fall into place. What those 5 principles are, the first one is real recognizes real. Open up yourself, be honest. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and tell everybody your story, but don't put on a show either. Mm-hmm. People only like a show when they know they're going to a show. Nobody likes a show spontaneously in a store.
True.
So be yourself. And what will happen is that in being yourself, people naturally open up to you. One of the great ways that I do a motivational speech is I share my pain. And in sharing my pain and sharing my genuine belief, other people come and share theirs. So real recognizes real. The next logic is that you can learn anything from anything at any time. A lot of people think education is only in the book, but education's around us in all sorts of interactions and stories and sharing and observations. And if you're going to be a great customer service rep, then that's what you need to do. You need to be a great observer. What can I learn? You're serving an elderly person and you're realizing that they can't keep up with you. Get them a chair. Just if you're just aware of that observation, and that observation comes with a desire to learn, you'll know that they need a chair because they can't keep up with the pace that you're moving at.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a mother with a child, I've had mothers hand me their children on a first meet basis. Because I engage and I say, oh, I recognize, and the child will even reach. And I think, honestly, I think the child reaches because of that realness. They know it's not a show. The children are way more intuitive than we give them credit for.
Agreed.
And so by just having a desire to learn, we develop the skill of observation. And if we develop the skill of observation, we'll naturally know what to do in a situation.
True.
The third one, and this one's a tough one, is you can never be kind enough to somebody for them not to hurt you. So you can give the best customer service to somebody. You can take all day and sell them a $1 item at the end of the day. And anybody who's in customer service and sales know that that's the most frustrating sale.
Mm-hmm.
And that person can still come back and say you gave poor service.
True.
Because no matter how kind you are to somebody, you can never be kind enough for them not to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
But the flip side of the coin is that should never stop you from being kind.
True.
And if you just in that sense is, don't worry about what the other person is going to do. Don't do it to get their reaction. Don't do it for the consequence to come from them. Do it because you know you should do it.
Because it's right.
Because it's right. You don't need a manager to tell you that. But what happened is you had 2 bad sales experiences for the day and your manager is upset with you. So guess what? I'm not serving anybody else for the day because it's going to lead to a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is that those people, no matter how good you were to them, they have no reason to be kind to you. They don't. It's if they choose to be kind, they'll be kind. But you have that choice as well. And so I always say, you can never be kind enough for somebody not to hurt you, but that shouldn't stop you from being kind. And then the last 2 points, which are really simple, is level up. Always seek ways of improving yourself. People hate being pushed. People love being pulled. So if you stand on top of something as the expert, as the champion, people want you to pull them up. Nobody wants you to be underneath them or behind them, pushing them forward. So if you're going to really serve somebody, you need to be a champion in the particular industry. You need to pull that person up to your level of understanding and expertise, and anything you say, they'll follow. And the last thing is always share what's uniquely yours. All of us have gone through life with particular stories and troubles and challenges, but those stories, troubles, and challenges have built a certain perspective that only we have, that only each individual has their perspective. You could have a twin and your twin can be totally different from you. Same mother, same father, same school, same opportunities, same education, and yet you're 2 totally different people because of one little change here, one little biochemistry here. And those changes create unique perspectives. And it's in unique perspectives we create unique connections. So you must always be ready to share what's uniquely yours, which goes full circle back to real recognizes real. So if I was to review it all, the 5 pillars, real recognizes real. You can learn anything from anything at any time. You can never be kind enough for somebody not to hurt you, but that shouldn't stop you from being kind. Level up and share what's uniquely yours.
I love it. Wow. That's amazing. So, and that's all in your program that you teach, correct?
Yep. Correct.
That's really, really good, Jeffrey. I think it's so important for you to really get down to the core of improving someone's personality because, customer service, as you said before, it's not what we put the label on. It's so much more than that. And it's not the tagline or the logo or the building. It's the people. And when you have an organization with 100 people, for example, all of them being socialized differently, different backgrounds, everybody coming under one roof, they're so expected to believe in the same mission and vision, have the same core values. If it is that, as you said, the leader is not someone who is able to pull and rise them up, really inspire, encourage, motivate them to be better, then the organization that you're looking for with a certain core value behavior is just not going to come about. So I really, champion you for putting those 5 pillars together. And for our listeners that are going to be listening to this podcast when it's released, I want you to really take these 5 pillars that Jeffrey has shared with us. It's like our golden nugget from this interview, and really try and apply it in your own lives and, pass it on to people who you want to share in their lives as well.
For sure. And I even want to just tail end off of what you said a while ago, is that idea that if the leaders don't do it, very often the staff won't do it. And it's a truth that I found time and time again. If the leader of an organization has time management issues, nothing in the organization happens on time. If they have personal financial issues, money in the company is never handled properly. If they're rude, the staff is rude. And it is so critical that not only as a customer server, but as a leader of an organization, your standard must be so much higher if those following you are going to emulate what you want them to emulate.
Yeah, amazing. So Jeffrey, how do you stay motivated every day? Because you're doing these motivational speeches, you have these pillars that you've created, you're still a very young, vibrant individual. What gets you motivated that every morning when your feet hit the ground, you're like, yes, I'm going to do this again?
Well, it's interesting because it's not motivation. As I said before, we sell or serve inspiration, motivation, and personal development. And it took me a long time to figure out the difference between the two. Motivation is the targets. And it's easy when you have a target, when you say, I'm going to get fit. And not just say you're going to get fit, but print out an image of what you want to look like. Write down the measurements you want to have. See a picture of yourself. Put up a mirror. Buy the gym clothes. Get the membership. All of that can help to motivate you. But if in your core, if in your soul, your root, your gut, whatever you want to call it, there isn't a fit person there, then no amount of motivation is going to help you. You must believe that you are called to be a fit person. You see, what happens with motivation is that very often motivation is set as a goal. And once the goal is achieved, lack sets in. So you have people who are world-class athletes. They're the champions. They've won the belt. They've won the medal. They've won the trophy. They are champions. And so they reach number 1. And very soon after they achieve number 1, somebody took it away from them. Mm-hmm. It's because they were motivated to be champions. They weren't inspired to be the best. Because if you're inspired to be the best, then every challenger, no matter my position, is a challenger that's stopping me from being the best. And so what I had to find in myself was that inspiration. And that inspiration came during that time of all the businesses that I was going through and all the changes I was making. At that time, I was looking for motivation. I was looking for the goal. I said, boy, if I get more money, I'll get the better girlfriend. I'll take care of the girlfriend. I'll drive the car I want. I'll live in the house I want. All of that was great motivation. But it was, on bad days, it wasn't enough. On rough days, it's not enough. And for a lot of us, we don't recognize how rough it is sometimes for people.
Yeah.
Depressions are a real thing. And depression is never depression of finances. It's never depression of lack of food. Because when you're lacking food, you're not thinking about depression. You're thinking about lack of food. Mm-hmm. So what happens is that your soul, your gut, your being, your entity, your spirit is lacking. And many people aren't making the conscious effort to fill. They're trying to distract. They're trying to achieve. And in achievement, I will find happiness. But money doesn't soothe the soul. Money can create opportunities. In fact, the Bible says money is a solution to all things. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people like to quote the Bible and say, oh, the love of money is the root of all evil. But literally, couple verses down from that one, it says money is the solution of all problems. So I'm not one to say don't go after it, because you can take it and create something from it.
Right.
But money won't soothe the soul. And that's what I was looking for the time. As I said, I grew up with a big fascination with the Renaissance men, and I grew up with this idea that I could do anything I wanted to do. If I decided doctor, I'd be a doctor. I had no question whether I could or couldn't be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't soothe the soul. And what came is, on this journey and consistently searching for it, I had a vision, and it was clear as day. And I was parked in my car at a red light, and I saw myself on stage speaking to an audience. And it was so clear. I was wearing a black suit, white pinstripe. It was a night show, open air venue. But when I looked out on the crowd, I couldn't see the end of the people. The people met the horizon.
Wow.
And in that vision, I found my inspiration. So on the days that I'm not motivated, because a lot of us are trying to use motivation to keep going, what I do is I have to fall back on that inspiration. I have to fall back on, Jeffrey, what is your soul calling you to do? Okay, I can't sprint today. I just can't sprint today. I haven't eaten right, I haven't slept right, I haven't trained right, I haven't stretched right. I cannot sprint today, but I can walk. And if I can walk, then I can move in the direction to which my soul is calling me. And the funny part about that story is that happened to me at 25. I had that thought when I was 8 years old. And many of us have that same thought around the same time as well. Mm-hmm. When you get asked a question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And many of us throw out these phenomenal ideas: astronaut, scientist, leader, prime minister, president, own my company. Mm-hmm. And for one reason or another, we give up on it, and then we settle. We become what I call employment seekers rather than value creators. And what happened to me is that when I was 8, I decided I want to be a teacher. And I told my mother. My mother said to me, that's great, that's noble, but just remember, teachers don't make a lot of money. And I went in my 8-year-old brain, well, if I can't have money, then how am I going to be happy? And gave up on the dream of teaching. Fast forward 17 years, what do I turn right around to do again? Teach. What more is a teacher than a single individual standing before an audience, sharing knowledge, information, and inspiration?
True. And the reality is we're all teachers at some point in our life, because merely as parents, you're teachers. And Lord knows there is no book for parenting, because every child is different.
Exactly. And so the thing is that once I acknowledged that was a calling, I've never not been able to take a step, no matter how poorly, demotivated, no matter how much in the hole I am. I mean, there's some people out there, I mean, my finances at some points are abysmal. Just being flat out honest, you look at the books and you go, geez, how am I going to get out of this one? And all it really is a challenge to say, how bad do you really want it?
True.
And what happens is a lot of us are pursuing goals and motivation that we don't really want.
True.
We're not answering our true calling.
That is so true.
And the thing is, if we answer our true calling, we're happier. We're going to find other people interested in it. And if we do it long enough, we'll become experts in it, and people will pay for our expertise. Mm-hmm. It's been proven time and time again, as abstract and as cliche as it sounds, it's not easy. If it was easy, and Eric Thomas says this all the time, and I love him for saying this, if it was easy, everybody would do it. So I'm not going to jump up and say it's easy, but I am going to say everybody can do it. It's, can you dig into that grit to push through the challenges, because life is going to consistently ask you, how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
And that's what gets me going in the morning. It's that inspirational thought that I searched 17 years actively looking for. Unfortunately, many people haven't even spent half an hour looking for it.
Yeah, that's so true. They kind of go through life. I don't even know if it's on autopilot, but it's on some form of robotics or, mechanism that...
It's not even them moving. Sometimes they're just on the conveyor belt.
Yeah.
And other things are happening and they're just moving between birth and death along that conveyor belt.
Correct. So correct. All right, Jeffrey, now what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you could not absolutely live without in your business?
YouTube. Without hesitation. No, and it kind of goes, I have a business partner of mine, Fred Robertson, and Fred asked me one time, I give so much. Jeffrey, you put out so much. You're always willing to share. You're always willing to contribute. Who gives Jeffrey? Who puts into Jeffrey? And I have to pull on other speakers. I have to pull on other motivators. I have to pull on other lines of thought. And the best place for that kind of collection is YouTube.
Yeah.
And there's certain magical qualities about a video. It doesn't allow the imagination to be as engaged as reading would. Because reading, the brain really goes into overdrive and does imagination. And I do my best to read a lot. But immersing the senses, the hearing and the sight and the colors, you can almost feel certain people's videos. And those boost me in a big way. They push me in a big way. They teach me a lot. Mm-hmm. I've learned so much listening to other speakers just on YouTube alone, much less when I go to actual conferences and workshops. So yeah, if I had to jump on one thing off the bat, before this interview, I was listening to a speech on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. So YouTube is your number one resource and tool that you absolutely can't live without. It helps to feed you. Now, you mentioned that you do try to do a bit of reading, which is so important. And we would like you to share with us maybe one or two books that you've read, either when you were very young or even in the last 6 months, that have had the biggest impact on you.
Who Moved My Cheese? I don't even have to think about that. I recommend that book to everybody ever. Anybody come and say, Jeffrey, what's a good reading? Who Moved My Cheese? You cannot move forward without reading Who Moved My Cheese. It was the book that created the business. It's the book that took the vision and made the business. I went to a mentor of mine at the time and I told him about the vision and I told him about the desire, the calling that I had. And he said, okay, what's next? And I said, I don't know. And he gave me his copy of Who Moved My Cheese. And I don't even know where that copy is. I passed it on to the next person who was in my situation. And I hope that it's still making its rounds. But the book of Who Moved My Cheese about being resolute and just taking action as you see. If you've never read it, I strongly, strongly recommend Who Moved My Cheese. In fact, I'm going to double check because I only remember the title. I can never remember the author. And I'd hate to discredit the author by not giving him
We'll have it in the show notes. It's by Ken Blanchard.
No, not Who Moved My Cheese is by Dr. Spencer Johnson.
Oh, that's another author?
It's forwarded by Kenneth Blanchard. But
okay.
It's written by Dr. Spencer Johnson.
Okay.
So Who Moved My Cheese is the first reading I tell anybody to go into business, and it sets such a solid mindset that you can't do without it. And right after that, I recommend reading Acres of Diamonds.
And who is the author for that one?
It's a minister. You see, I always pay attention to the titles and never the authors. So I'm going to give me 2 seconds and I'll tell you. Russell H. Conwell. And what it is about, Acres of Diamonds. So Who Moved My Cheese is about making a decision and taking action, which is actually where the company name got its idea, Select and Start. Make a decision and take action. Acres of Diamonds is about finding wealth where you are. Too many times we look at our situation and it's such a abysmal situation that we say we must go somewhere else to find it. But Acres of Diamonds goes through a number of stories that shows that wealth is right where we are if we have the open-mindedness and the creativity in which to extract that value. So making a decision, taking action, and doing it where you are, I couldn't recommend bigger lessons for people starting out. And as I said, this goes right back to customer service, because a lot of the time we blame people for poor customer service, or we say they're poor customers. So both sides of the coin have the complaint. And yet what it is that we're not mining the opportunities that we have right there.
Right.
You know, there's a young man, I can't remember all the details of the story, but in paraphrasing, an elderly woman goes into an outlet store and she looks like she can't afford, she can't, as in Jamaica we'd say, she can't stop a stale bread cart. And so nobody pays her any attention except for one young man who, truthfully, he's not even a server in the store. He's more of an errand and cleanup guy.
Right.
But he takes the time and he serves her, and he takes all day and serves her. She buys nothing. About 3 months later, she comes back and she comes with a long list. They find out that she's actually European royalty and she's looking to buy for her castle. And the only person who she would allow to sell her was the young man. And she insisted, not only does he get full commission, but he gets a service fee to come to the castle to make sure that it's properly installed.
Very good. All because of that one kindness, right?
That one kindness.
Which goes back to your pillar. You should always be kind regardless.
Exactly. So that's the kind of opportunities that lay around us, and we let them slip because of poor customer service.
True.
So if you're going to serve, go ahead, go for it, full force, because you never know that you may be uncovering an acre of diamonds.
Very true. Very true. Amazing. All right, Jeffrey, can you share with us what's one thing in your life that you are working on right now that you're really excited about? Maybe something that you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Oh boy, is it ready to discuss? That's a question.
Well, maybe you can just give us a snippet, maybe 10% of it.
Here's the setup then. When I was 13, I spent a lot of time questioning what's wrong with Jamaica, and spoke to many people, double, triple, quadruple my age, got a lot of input, got a lot of thoughts. And you would hear all sorts of answers: corruption, education, poor health facility, poor services, poor government agencies. And what I boiled them down to was two major factors that any country in the world having problems, it's probably these two factors as well: the education system and the family unit structure. You see, what happens is no matter how good you make the education system, if you have a poor family unit, the family unit undoes what the education system tries to do in many cases. The teacher tells you that you can do anything you want. You go home, your mother tells you that you're not going to amount to anything. And I recognize those two from a very young age in my mind, and I still hold that very strongly today, that those are the two major factors holding back any third world country. And so the big project Select and Start is working on, in just summary, is to fix those two things.
Amazing.
I can't get into it without sharing too much detail.
Right.
But the major project, when we started Select and Start's mission is to help people maximize their potential in an infinite number of ways: digitally, mentally, emotionally, physically, unlocking potential. And we recognize that if we can fix those two systems, we'll accomplish the mission.
Excellent.
So
you're starting from the root, which is so important.
Exactly. If we get other contracts and speaking engagements, established people, coming up people, entrepreneurs, we'll go in, we'll motivate, we'll share, we'll develop. And, for in a big part, that may be the bread and butter. But the mission is, how do we get everybody to unlock their maximum potential? And that can't be done by doing one-off corporate gigs. It must be a project bigger than me. It must be a project bigger than Select and Start. It must be a project bigger than Jamaica. And that's what we're working towards.
Very good. All right. Well, we wish you all the best on that project. And as you continue to inspire, motivate, encourage, just do all the things that you were put on this earth to do, we know that God will continue to give you the strength, connect you with the right people, position all circumstances, people, and events, that the doors will open to create everything that you have in your mind. It will become reality.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Now, can you tell our listeners where they can find you online? Because I'm sure after listening to this, they're going to be like, I need to know where I can meet this man. I need to connect with him.
So the best way to connect with me is through our Select and Start pages. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And the company is Select and Start. And I want to just take a second. It's not Select and Start, which a lot of people tend to call it, but it's Select and Start. Kind of like rock and roll, Select and Start. It's two actions, but one idea. So it's not Select and Start, but Select and Start. So Select and Start. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And if you want to reach out to me directly, the best way is Instagram. That's my most active account. It is jj.azan. You can find me on Twitter. And reach out to us. I'd love to hear from people. I'd love to answer questions. I'd love to be of service in providing motivation, inspiration, and personal development.
Excellent. All right, Jeffrey, right before we wrap up our interview, we always like to ask our guests if there is a quote or saying that during times of adversity or challenge, or even those times you mentioned in the interview that, you're faced with challenging days where you feel like you just can't move forward because you feel like the problem is overwhelming you. Do you have a quote or a saying that sometimes you kind of revert to that kind of helps you to refocus and, select and start again? Do you have one of those?
I have many of those. Unfortunately, they're all mine.
Well, no problem.
No, they came out. It's funny. Sometimes you do a speech as a speaker. Sometimes you go out and do a speech and you didn't intend to say something and it flowed together. And I have two things that keep me going. And that is, if I depend on others for my success, I'll only have myself to blame. And I don't want anybody to misconceptualize this, that I'm saying I do everything by myself. I know I'm not a master of everything. I'm trying to be, but I'm not. But the point is that if I depend on those doing the other jobs, if I make my success sit in their hands, then if they fail, I can't blame them. I can only blame myself because my success is my responsibility.
True.
And then the second idea is your story matters.
I heard that one.
All right. What your story matters speaks to is the knowledge that even your most minuscule action can change somebody's world. Some of us don't recognize that when we make somebody smile in what was a nonchalant exchange to us, but we made that person smile, it might have been the first time they smiled for the day. And it might be the only smile they get for the day. So we must be very conscious that all of our minuscule actions, from the smallest action, the smallest interaction, the smallest exchange, it matters. And those small exchanges build our story.
Yeah. Amazing. So basically we are responsible for our own success. We have no one else to blame and our story matters. So regardless of your triumphs, regardless of the challenges that you're faced with, you are unique, and who you are and what you are, it matters.
That's spot on.
Amazing. Wow. This is such a wonderful interview, Jeffrey. I don't even feel like I was doing a podcast interview. I feel like you were sitting in my living room and we're just having a casual, just inspiring conversation. One that has really reinvigorated me for my own purpose in my life.
That's a real recognizes real connection.
Yes. Amazing. So we just want to thank you again so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to just sit with us here today and share this, this amazing information that you've shared with us. And, when the podcast is released, I know this is definitely going to be one of the more popular ones. I can tell you from now because, as you said, real recognizes real. And I think regardless of where the persons are coming from that will be listening to this interview, they're really going to connect on a very deep level a lot of what you've spoken about today. So thank you so much again.
I really appreciate being here. I appreciate any opportunity to serve.
Amazing. So guys, again, if you'd like to connect with us further, you can reach out to us on Facebook. We have a private Facebook group entitled Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. So until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We really appreciate your support of this podcast. Are you ready to grow your business even more? Or improve your leadership skills? Or train your team members in the art of customer service? Give us a call at 305-848-0815 or visit our website at www.yannickgrant.com. That's YANIQUEGRANT.com. Remember, 305-848-0815 or visit our website at yannickgrant.com. Our new online course, Mastering Customer Experience and Increasing Your Revenue, is now available. The link for this will be on the show notes of each episode starting September 7, 2016. The first 2 modules are free. So hop on over, have a look, and take the steps to increase your revenue.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.